In the 80s, the biggest British boy band was Wham. 5 UK number ones, they broke America and then they broke up. Afterwards, George Michael went on to be a very big pop star, and other Wham member, Andrew Ridgeley, did not. It's set in the pop-consuming public's minds that only one member can win a boy band breakup. In the 90s, Take That were the biggest British boy band. The 5 working class lads from the north of England earned 8 UK number ones in 3 years. However, when they broke up in 1996, there could only be one George Michael. This is New British Canon, and this is the story of Back for Good. Born in the small town of Frodsham in Cheshire, Gary Barlow had always dreamt of fame, spending every Thursday afternoon of his pre-teens glued to Top of the Pops. He was wowed by the likes of Adam Ant, Duran Duran, and Spandau Ballet. But it was after witnessing Depeche Mode perform in 1981 that he saw his future in front of him.
And they're playing music which all of a sudden really connected with me. I loved the sound of it. I loved the brightness. I loved the modern feel. I just loved it. And there he was, Vince Clarke, playing a synthesizer. And it just looked like the most it was like watching God. And so it was a light bulb moment for me. I all of a sudden knew where I wanted to be, and it was on that stage.
That Christmas, he was gifted his first synthesizer, the Yamaha PS2. But within a couple of weeks, he had exhausted the limited sounds of this tiny new device and upgraded to a bigger, 2-keyboarded behemoth, his father taking on extra shifts to pay for it. He would spend 6 months driving his family crazy as he worked his way to perfecting Procol Harum's A Whiter Shade of Pale. By the age of 12, he was entertaining working men's clubs with his keyboard skills in Wales and Cheshire, often losing his audience to the arrival of hot meat pies. Though after he started singing as well, he soon graduated from preceding the bingo to supporting cabaret acts, as well as regional comedians like Jim Davidson and Ken Dodd. In this time, he formulated how to get the standing ovations that headliners were getting, the perfect sequence of contemporary hits and oldies to get the retired crowds on their feet. By 1986, in the age of 15, he was writing his own material, entering BBC songwriting competition A Song for Christmas. Barlow came second after A Girl's Choir with his song Let's Pray for Christmas.
Come with me, we are free.
By this point, his influences had started to calcify, a particularly unhip collection of 70s singer-songwriters, soft rock and soul.
And you can tell everybody this is your song. Oh man, well you came and you gave without taking. I take you just the way you are.
And from this, he formed the song that catalyzed his path into the 90s.
A million words just trying to make the love song of the year.
When you write young, it's creative, but also a process of regurgitation. It's like you put a load of songs that you love in a mental blender, with the goal of writing a ballad, a sweet love song. Neil Diamond's Love on the Rocks, Stuck on You and Hello by Lionel Richie, and I was mad about Aha at the time.
First they say they want you, hey, how they really need you. Are you somewhere feeling lonely, or is someone loving you?
Whiz it in your mind, and out comes A Million Love Songs.
Here I am trying to tell you that I care.
A Million Love Songs was on Barlow's first demo tape. After he finished school, he would spend time travelling down to London, and personally delivering this tape to the biggest labels and talent agencies. None were impressed. At Rocket Publishing, the executive listened to the tape in front of the young Barlow before getting frustrated and hurling the tape through the window. As Barlow left, the executive shouted at him, "Don't you ever bring your songs here again." But then, in 1989, The tape landed on the desk of Manchester's Nigel Martin Smith. Taken aback by the fact that A Million Love Songs wasn't a cover, but deeming him too young to start a solo career, he sought to build a group around Barlow's songs. What would become Take That. Legend has it that there was a nationwide search for his bandmates, but Barlow has stated that in reality, aside from him, only 5 hopefuls auditioned, the remainder being too hairy, too much of a man, to fit into this boy band. Those that made it in were T-Boy Mark Owen, breakdancer and car sprayer Howard Donald, painter and decorator Jason Orange, and 16-year-old cheeky monkey Robbie Williams. Williams' background was in theatre, having played the Artful Dodger in a production of Oliver in his early teens.
Name's Jake Dawkins. Ben out to my mother, handsome prince as the Artful Dodger.
A perfect showcase for his audacious energy. He auditioned by singing along to the Stock Aitken Waterman concoction, Nothing Can Divide Us.
With love to guide us, nothing can divide us.
And did some MC Hammer style dancing, though he has since stated that it was the wink to Martin Smith as he left the audition that secured his position in the band. But aside from Barlow, none of the boys at the time were especially great singers. Not that they needed to be. They were young, hip, and conventionally good looking. Martin Smith's vision was to assemble a British version of New Kids on the Block. A 5-piece boy band with winning vocal harmonies, choreographed dancing, and coordinated outfits. But having been besotted with the likes of Elton John, Neil Diamond and Barry Manilow through his teen years, Barlow was unfamiliar with the pop success of the New Kids, nor the contemporary sounds of New Jack Swing and House they would have to mine for the early years of Take That.
Wrong move, you did. That girl is
As the 90s started, Martin Smith pushed Take That within Britain's gay club scene. Barely covered in leather chic and arseless chaps, their young sexuality, high energy sound, and general campiness built them a foundation of support from which they could build on. I think that anything the gay community comes up with will be dismissed at first. Dismiss the music, dismiss the clothes, dismiss everything because it's gay. And then from the period of 2 to 5 years later, everyone's going, f***ing hell, I'm mad for that music, I'm mad for those clothes. And it's always the same. The gay community embraced us with open arms, and then before you know it, f***ing hell, Take That, yeah, I've always quite liked them. Their first single, July 1991's Do What You Like, was one of Barlow's first attempts at capturing the zeitgeist with his newly acquired sampler. For the track, he worked with Ray Hedges and spent most of his available time attempting to replicate the beat of Chicago house track Work It to the Bone.
Work. Come on, let's work.
The verse lyrics were a last-minute mess of food as sex metaphors. As none of the labels were biting, Martin Smith remortgaged his house and self-released the single. However, its zero-budget video was more of a talking point, an even more explicit mess of food and sex, the sparsely clothed boys being coated in cream and jelly. An edit where the band ended up being mopped clean while stark bollock naked was only broadcast once. Though the single failed to make the UK Top 75, the video got them noticed, got the group signed to RCA, and garnered the band a fair share of teen press. Magazines like Smash Hits and Number One were just happy to have some agreeable, smiling faces on their covers, in an era of faceless house producers. Such was the scarcity for suitable teen pop cover stars in 1991. Chesney Hawkes appeared on the front of Smash Hits 3 times. Their 1992 promotional tour saw the band play as many schools as they could. Piled in the back of a van, Take That would do 4 shows a day, playing a school assembly about noon, another at 3, an early evening under-18s club show, and then a gay club at 1 in the morning, with the occasional midday in-store signing session, if time permitted. All from working class backgrounds. They weren't afraid of some hard graft. At the same time, Martin Smith implemented guidelines for the band. No girlfriends, so the band seemed available. No drugs, and no going out. But with their schedule, the latter was hardly even an option. Williams, the youngest, especially rackled against these limitations, and the joint parental figures of Barlow and Martin Smith. If it weren't for him and his managerial techniques, Take That might not have happened. Trouble was, his methods were at times very hard to deal with, and certain members, in particular Robbie, suffered a great deal from them. From then on, their ascent up the charts was gradual but shaky. Their next 2 Barlow-penned singles merely flirted with the top 40. They were saved from RCA dropping them by their cover of the Tavares disco standard, It Only Takes a Minute, reaching number 7. But as Barlow's songs now had a track record of not becoming hits, songwriting team Ian Levine and Billy Griffin were brought in to create their next single, August 1992's I Found Heaven, bruising Barlow's ego further. After the release of their debut album, Take That and Party, A Million Love Songs would equal It Only Takes a Minute's chart placing.
Here I am trying to tell you that I care.
But it wasn't looking promising for the supposed pop wunderkind. That Take That's only self-written hit wasn't written this decade. Additionally, it wouldn't be long before other would-be pop moguls would create bands with the Take That formula. White working class lads with Boyz II Men harmonies. After Take That gave Levine the shove, he got his revenge by forming a rival boy band. I've made no secret of the fact that I don't like the way I've been treated by Take That. Having said that, I had a lot of plans for what I was going to do with Take That's second album. A lot of ideas, a lot of songs. Every single one of those ideas is in Bad Boys Inc. These were very sound ideas, hit records. I couldn't let that just dissipate into thin air. They forced me to find Bad Boys. 1993's Prey, which preceded their second album Everything Changes, was when Take That truly entered their imperial phase. And Barlow proved himself a hitmaker. A conflux of religion and sex, remixed onto a soul-to-soul shuffle. It would snag Barlow his first Ivor Novello Award, and kick off their admirable UK chart-topping run. However, it was also around this time that it became increasingly apparent that Robbie Williams could sing. A bravado late song solo run on It Only Takes a Minute led to him fronting I Found Heaven, their cover of Barry Manilow's Could It Be Magic, as well as the fun knockabout Everything Changes.
I thought I found love with somebody else's girl, whirling like a cyclone in my mind. So much is new, but something in my life remains the same.
Williams was also trying to exercise his creativity, writing little rap verses for Barlow's songs, which Barlow vetoed, saying that they didn't add anything. This protectiveness over songwriting, and therefore the publishing of Take That's hits, meant that Barlow was earning significantly more than his bandmates. As such, jealousy and distrust brewed between Barlow and Williams.
Guys used to tell this story about backing acts. If they didn't like the act, they would play a note off key to make the singer sound off key. That stuck with me. I knew that he didn't like me or felt threatened by me. At the time, it was like, metaphorically speaking, I couldn't trust him to not play the right key. And he couldn't trust me either.
Cabin fever style paranoia and infighting crept into the everyday of Take That, provoked by the destabilizing position that fame had put them in, exacerbated by Martin Smith's iron rules. They were the most famous 5 men in Britain, unable to walk through the streets without security, with both the hotels they stayed at and their family homes being barraged by an onslaught of teenage girls. But despite this absurd amount of fame, their last single of 1983, the Mark Owen-led hair metal ballad Babe, was denied Christmas #1 by a pink and yellow Hell Demon. That last week before Christmas 1993, we were neck and neck, I swear. There was tens of records in it. And then Blobby went to 10 Downing Street, and he was on the cover of every newspaper. We couldn't believe it. And of course, he just strided ahead then, and got Christmas #1.
No star too bright, no squeeze too tight, no tail too tall, no cat too cool, no bass too low, he'll give it a go.
It was the worst Christmas I've ever had. He ruined my Christmas. Gary Barlow was always at odds with the rest of Take That. Having spent his teenagehood playing the cabaret circuit with musicians triple his age, he'd matured too early, and so was a lone grown-up in a band of boys. Compared to his cohorts, he found it difficult to follow dance routines, and couldn't pull off the flamboyant looks that were the band's stock in trade. He was also routinely criticised for his weight by the media, who were keen to note his affection for Toblerone, Kit Kats and Pringles. By any sane standard, Gary Barlow was a perfectly healthy man in his early 20s, but as a boy band member, he was deemed the fat one who couldn't dance. Furthermore, within the screaming mostly female masses of their fanbase, Barlow was rarely the favourite. In the Smash Hits Readers poll, the cute compact Mark Owen would win Most Fanciable Male every year between 1992 and 95, with Williams and Howard Donald vying for second and third. Barlow lucky to make the top 10. Due to this unpopularity, supposedly when they released Take That dolls, the Gary doll was free if you bought the other 4, and being seen as the least fanciable caused him considerable self-esteem issues. You'd be on stage and there'd be banners saying Robbie, shag me, Jason, blow me a kiss, Mark, show us your bum, and Gary, we like your music. In essence, he didn't fit in as a member of Take That, but also as the one writing their songs. Martin Smith wanted bangers, songs that his young band could dance enthusiastically to. Barlow, though, found it hard to write those up-tempo numbers. Therefore, they would often resort to covers of disco songs.
It only takes a minute, girl, to fall in love. It only takes a minute, girl. Only takes a minute, girl, to fall in love. Could it be magic? Come on, come on, come on. Oh, could it be magic? No, no. Relight my fire. Relight my fire.
Barlow was a balladeer, a piano player at heart, in a dance pop world. In mid-1994, Take That were afforded a rare 2-week-long break in their schedule, and capitalised on this with a holiday in Mykonos, an attempt to ease some of their mounting stress. But Barlow had the band's 3rd album to write. Retiring to Cheshire, to his new house bought with the royalties he'd accumulated from years of sampler-based songwriting, He decided, with the encouragement of producer Chris Porter, to get back to his roots. He used to always comment on how beautifully I played piano, but I hardly play anymore, I said. I've got no time for piano. I need to learn dance routines and try and get on top of my backflips. And anyway, I've got a sampler. Chris said, ignore all that shit. Just play. Just play your piano. Because he used to compliment me all the time, I got back into playing. I needed that encouragement. After returning to the piano, one of the first songs he wrote was Back for Good. Written in 15 minutes and modelled on the Commodore's Easy, it shows Barlow realising that the best pop revels in simplicity after a career of whiz-kid keyboard pyrotechnics.
That's why I'm easy.
I just want you back for good.
Is simply 4 chords, propelled by crystalline acoustic guitars, and Barlow's powerful, hooky vocal melody.
Guess now it's time for me to give up.
What makes Back for Good stand out in the well-worn genre of I Want You Back songs is the details of the protagonist's utter devastation in the aftermath of the breakup. Dumbfounded by the separation, he's been unable to clean up after himself.
Picture of you beside me, got your lipstick mark still on your coffee cup.
Trying to pick up the pieces and failing to work out quite what went wrong. Like having awoken after being blackout drunk, the chorus lyrics embody this very genuine male cluelessness.
Whatever I said, whatever I did, I didn't mean it.
He is aware that she is gone, that he most likely did something wrong, and he is wholeheartedly sorry for whatever that might have been. It's relatable in a terrible way. The inability to truly understand how your words and actions impact others, followed by the shameless repenting when everything's gone to shit.
Whatever I'm wrong, just tell me the song and I'll sing it.
In reality, it is about a songwriter finding himself again. There I was, wearing ridiculous costumes and showing my bare ass in videos, and deep down, inspired by Chris, I was wondering, where's that guy gone that used to just play the piano?
And we'll be together.
Back for Good was me getting him back. Back for Good invited the old me out of the closet.
This time is forever.
That was the magic of that song. Back for Good is not about a girl, it's about a piano.
See, I want you back, girl.
While Gary Barlow had written some pretty good songs in the past, Back for Good is when he transcended boy band fluff, aimed for the parents as well as their daughters. Such was its instant classic status, some rumoured that Barlow hadn't written it, instead crediting it to a Bee Gee, Barry Gibb. Quizzed about the claim in 2013, Gibb said he'd never even heard the song. One unexpected fan was another northern musician known for buffing 4 chords to an anthemic sheen, Noel Gallagher. If it touches people, it's a good song. You know, people go on about Take That, but Back for Good said something to me, and if it touches me. Released in March 1995, it became their 6th UK number 1, as well as topping the charts in 9 other countries. It also hit number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, making them the first British boy band to have a US top 10 since Wham. Because of the song, Take That had been signed to Arista in the States, their head honcho, Clive Davis, knowing a hit when he heard it. However, it would be the only song to dent the US charts. The country incompatible with the homoerotic image Take That had fashioned for themselves. No, we didn't break America. Back for Good broke America. But nobody over there knew who we were. Research showed that people over 30 were buying that record. So we didn't break America, and I knew it at the time because there was no market for us out there. On July 17, 1985, Robbie Williams made a press statement to say that he was leaving Take That. Supposedly beforehand, he'd contacted 3 of the biggest tabloid papers in the UK, telling them all they had the exclusive story of his exit. So distraught was a 14-year-old girl in Germany upon hearing the news, she attempted to take her own life. The Samaritans had special phone lines set up so that teenagers deeply affected by his departure had someone to talk to. To them, Robbie Williams wasn't just a guy in a band. This was their future husband, and he had betrayed them by leaving. At the time, whether Williams left willingly or was sacked was contested. In reality, he was just not enjoying being in the band, and as such was becoming more of a liability, pushing back against the limitations, going out until 6 in the morning during tour time, with an increased reliance on alcohol. Though hidden from the band, according to Williams, he had nearly overdosed the night before a performance at the VMAs in November 1994. In late June 1995, he disappeared for a weekend during the Nobody Else tour rehearsals. He'd gone to Glastonbury. When video emerged of Williams high with a tooth missing, later revealed to be simply blacked out with a marker, as well as appearing on stage drunkenly bez dancing with Oasis, his bandmates confronted him about his commitment. Recently, we'd had a few chats, and I think it was becoming quite obvious that he wasn't very happy. We have an agreement to give a 6 months notice if anyone wanted to leave. About 2 weeks ago, he gave us a 6 months notice. Since then, we've been trying to carry on in rehearsals, but I think it was quite obvious to us that he wasn't very happy. So we decided that we didn't want to put a mate through this pain for 6 months, and maybe he should go now. Take That embarked on the Nobody Else tour as a 4-piece. Williams would sue the label to be free of his contract, which stated that he could not start a solo career until Take That had officially ended. The band would release 2 more singles, Never Forget and a cover of the Bee Gees' How Deep Is Your Love, again both UK #1s. The former single was remixed by Meat Loaf producer Jim Steinman. And dissected the fame that Barlow had wanted so badly. The latter was released to promote their Greatest Hits album in March 1986.
How deep is your love? Is your love? How deep is your love? How deep is your love? Is your love? How deep is your love?
A month earlier, on February 13th, Robbie Williams' 22nd birthday, Take That had announced they were splitting up. I was the one that first brought it up, before it was announced. We were at a hotel in London and I just said, I'm really bored, everybody. I think this is our time. We're at the peak of our careers. When we were at the Smash Hits Awards last year, I said to Mark, we can't be here next year. Every band on that stage looked, sounded and danced like us. And I just wanted out, because we'd done all we could. The bubble was going to burst. Now free of his commitments to the band, Gary Barlow could finally start his long-awaited solo career, claim the George Michael role that the press had foretold for him. 5 months after Take That announced their split, in early July 1996, he revealed his debut single, the Manilow-esque Forever Love.
This could be love forever.
The same month, Williams talked to Attitude magazine, revealing just how unhappy he was in Take That, as well as what he really thought about Barlow. I definitely felt manipulated from the off. I definitely did. And from day one, I felt I was being deliberately ostracized. Well, when you walk into an audition, you sit down, and you see a guy with spiky hair, looking really f***ing dated in these horrible tracksuit bottoms, and shitty trainers, and a briefcase and music score sheets, and this bloke, this clueless wanker, says, I write the songs because I'm Gary Barlow. Little jibes about Barlow would litter Williams' future interviews and live shows. The most cutting ones for Barlow being claims that he was a bad songwriter. Additionally, after almost a year of legal red tape, newly signed to EMI, Robbie Williams set the release of his debut single 2 weeks after Barlow's, a cover of George Michael's Freedom 90. It was not only a nod to Michael's parallel label issues, but an obvious self-comparison. If Take That are the Wham of the 90s, he's not gonna become the Andrew Ridgeley. For about half a minute, the press hyped up a potential teen pop version of Blur vs Oasis, but it wasn't to be. While Barlow's single entered the UK charts at #1, it and Williams' singles were steamrolled by the next big thing in pop.
If you wanna be my lover, You gotta get with my friends, make it last forever.
Barlow started off strong, with his first 2 singles going number 1.
Love won't wait forever and a day.
So too his 1997 debut album, Open Road, entered the charts at number 1. Robbie Williams' debut, Life Through a Lens, released the same year, had a less promising start, initially only remaining in the top 75 for 4 weeks before dropping out. In December 1997, both artists were booked to play a charity gig, Barlow from his lofty position, ignoring the sour words in the press. The 2 former bandmates talked for the first time since Williams' exit. I was thinking I'm clear here, because his album had got to only number 11, and each single was doing worse than the last. I thought if he could have a bit of success, it'd stop him slagging me off. So I said, "You are right." And he says, "This album hasn't done very well. I'm thinking of sacking it and doing a new one." I said, "Don't worry, you'll be okay." The next week he released Angels.
And through it, oh, she offers me protection.
And I've watched in horror ever since.
A lot of love and affection, whether I'm right or wrong.
Not only did Robbie Williams become the George Michael of Take That, claiming the career that Gary Barlow was supposed to have, he became the biggest British pop star of the last 30 years. As yet another kick in the teeth, Williams will cover Back for Good live in a Sex Pistols style. Metaphorically tearing down not only his time in Take That, but the moment Barlow assumed the role of credible songwriter. Come 1999 and Gary Barlow's compromised second album, 12 Months, 11 Days, the public at large had lost interest, especially when compared to his former bandmate. He had also made the unfortunate error of releasing an atypical label-push dance pop song called Stronger as the album's lead single, 4 months after Williams' charismatic Oasis-y single Strong had gone top 5. Forcing a comparison that did Barlow no favours. The album took over a year and £800,000 to make, charted at number 35 for a single week before dropping out of the top 75. At the same time, Williams revelled in Barlow's misfortune.
He's not selling any more records now, though. Let's face it, he's dead!
It was all a bit of a torment. I had this beautiful white piano, my lucky piano. Every hit I'd written on this piano. Within 6 months of this not happening anymore, this piano drove me mad. To the point where I spent days just looking at it, lying underneath it, lying on top of it, rubbing my face on it, going slowly insane, trying to work out why this thing wasn't delivering to me like it used to. In 2000, Barlow was dropped by his label, just kinda stuck, unable to write anything worthwhile. He felt it was time to give up. Hyper aware of how little his phone was now ringing, he sank to his lowest point, depressed and slowly gaining weight. What little joy he got as he approached 17 stone was that no one recognized him. In his early 20s, he couldn't go to the shops without being mobbed by teenagers. Some years later, the fear was the mockery of bystanders, wielding pop-flop venom jabs. Time moved on. Barlow's waxwork at Madame Tussauds was melted down to make Britney Spears. He got some background work as a songwriter. He was initially rebuffed from his attempts in the UK due to his supposed has-been stink. For example, Victoria Beckham vehemently denied to the press that he worked with her, before eventually writing some hits for Blue, Donny Osmond, and his old bandmate, Mark Owen.
If it's wrong to do what's right, I'm prepared to testify. The clouds aren't in. 3 minutes left to go. Is this the end then? Message on your stereo.
Late 2005 saw another Take That Greatest Hits compilation, with the newly recorded old song, Today I've Lost You.
Maybe we'll turn back the time, work it out, start anew.
And the tell-all documentary for the record.
In Spain, on one occasion we all went clubbing and I think we all did half an E or something, and it was the most amazing feeling.
Both got Barlow, Owen, Orange and Donald more comfortable with the idea of working together again, despite worries on the part of the band that no one would care. When they announced their reunion tour, all 11 dates sold out in half an hour, immediately prompting the scheduling and selling out of an additional 15 dates. Ultimately, over 250,000 tickets were sold in the space of 3 hours. They agreed that Nigel Martin Smith would not be managing them this time around, partly due to him not believing that anyone would be interested in a Take That reunion without Williams, though mostly because of how he treated them the first time around. In addition to this, they started writing new music, not just backing Barlow's songs, but writing as a group effort. Not convinced to start again with their old label, Take That signed to Polydor and released the single Patience in November 2006, which continued their streak of UK number ones, despite their decade-long break. The boys were back. The boys were back for good. Said Nicky Wire of the Manic Street Preachers, "It's the greatest comeback single in history. If Neil Young had written it, people would be calling it a masterpiece. I've always liked Take That too. They looked so brilliant back in the day and did everything right. But this is something else. It's got such a dark lyric. My heart is numb, has no feeling. So while I'm healing, just try." There's also a maturity about it that suits the boys all grown up. Gary Barlow is a genius. I won't have anyone argue against him. Take That are now the British band with the most UK number ones, aside from the Beatles. By the time they returned, it's fair to say they'd been the blueprint for every British and Irish boy band in the interim, and many after. Though rewired for a US audience, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC were modelled on Take That, and even the Spice Girls were formed in an attempt to create a female version. And as well as Robbie Williams' notable take, a surprising number of diverse acts have attempted to cover Back for Good.
Whatever I said, whatever I did, didn't mean it. I just want you back for good. I want you back. I said I want you back. Whenever I'm wrong, just tell me the song and I'll sing it. You'll be right and understood. You see, I want you back for good.
In 2009, Take That embarked on their month-long Circus Stadium tour, their most lavish production yet. Watching the stage was one Robbie Williams, feeling a slight pang of jealousy. It looked like fun. As much as he had hated being in Take That back in the 90s, the lack of control, creativity and personal time, He missed playing live when the focus wasn't entirely on him. He missed his brothers in arms. And it hit him that all that bitterness he'd accumulated over the years for one person wasn't healthy. Rob rang me, which is unusual because he doesn't ring me very often. It's always emails. He went, "I want you all to come up to the house. There are things I want to say that will help us move forward." So the following night we had the "You said I was fat in 1991" conversation. One of the most amazing nights of my life. I went from having a real problem with this person to literally rolling on the floor laughing with him 10 minutes later. We were genuinely sorry that we'd upset each other. And after the "whatever I said, whatever I didn't mean it" part, their first step forward was to collaborate for the first time ever on the 2010 duet "Shame" from Williams' In and Out of Consciousness Greatest Hits album.
People spend a lifetime this way.
After 15 years of being apart, take That's next album, 2010's Progress, and the coinciding 2011 tour, the band were back to being a five-piece. And while Williams would leave again to continue his solo career, for that moment there were no regrets, no hard feelings, just five lads with a passion for pop. Thanks for watching. So who's your favourite, Gary or Robbie? Comment down below. If you like this video, like, subscribe, and why don't you also do me a favour and share it with a couple of people. It really does help. As always, I'd like to shout out this month's new top tier supporters over on Patreon. Jim Cunner, Phantom Mayor, Cole Butler, Casey, and Elise Matheson, also known as Lioness. And thanks to everyone else that supports me. I will see you in several weeks' time for a dose of 90s bubble grunge.